Support for this podcast comes from the St. Alphonsus Neuroscience Institute, offering technology to provide treatment for neurological, neurosurgical, and neurointerventional conditions. This includes a dedicated neurotrauma ICU for critical care of the brain or spine and a 24/7 stroke team. More at stalphonsus.org.
Look, we know budget meetings can be dull, but that's exactly what this year's Idaho legislative session has been all about. We break down the latest budget moves, plus all of the week's news from the State House on our Legislative Roundup newsletter. Kick off your Monday with our recap by subscribing at boisestatepublicradio.org.
From Boise State Public Radio, this is The Connector, and it's Idaho's Daily News. Good morning. I'm George Prentice. Well, we're learning about just how many Idahoans who have received traffic tickets that are ignoring them with little to no consequences. We've got that story. Plus, cities hoping to get on Idaho's insurance plan, they're out of luck. It is Thursday, the 19th of March. Here we go with today's stories. The mayor of Nampa, Rick Hogaboam, died last evening. A statement from the mayor's office said Hogaboam suffered a medical emergency during a public event in Eagle. A regional town hall, which had included a number of elected officials from across the Treasure Valley, was being held at Eagle City Hall Wednesday evening. During the event, and shortly after Hogaboam began to speak, witnesses said the Nampa mayor experienced an emergency. The mayor of Eagle, Brad Pike, was sitting to Hogaboam's right. He reportedly began administering CPR, but Hogaboam died a short time later. The statement from Nampa City Hall asked the community to pray for the Hogaboam family as they began to mourn what they said was an unbelievable loss. Idaho cities, hoping to get cheaper health insurance through the state, are out of luck this year. James Dawson explains.
The bill from Republican Representative Rick Cheatham, who also sits on the Pocatello City Council, would have allowed cities to buy into the state employee health program. He says it would bring more certainty to cities navigating unstable insurance markets.
They would know what the increases are going to be. They can budget early. They can get in and make it work for that city and that city's budget.
But Republican Representative Josh Tanner, who co-chairs the legislature's budget committee, feels differently.
This is actually not a good bill. This is actually a horrible bill. And part of the problem is that cities should not be involved within our own state plan.
That's because Tanner says only cities with unhealthy employees will join, hiking up costs for the state. The bill ultimately failed and cannot be reconsidered this year. James Dawson, Boise State Public Radio News.
Both men's and women's University of Idaho Vandal basketball teams are in the NCAA tournament. The men today, the women tomorrow. It is the men's first trip to March Madness since 1990. Troy Oppie has a preview.
The Vandal men are a 15 seed at the tournament, facing 2 seed Houston tonight at 7:10 p.m. Mountain Time. The Idaho men have 5 homegrown players on the roster, the most since 1972. 3 from the Treasure Valley are major contributors: Meridian High alum Brady Robery and Jackson Rasmussen and Jack Payne, who both played at Owyhee High School. Idaho might not have been to a tournament in decades, but 3 current Vandals who transferred in from other schools have shared their tournament experience, says sophomore Colton Mitchell. He's from Coeur d'Alene.
Kind of like what a day would look like in the tournament, what kind of practice things are. All 3 of the guys didn't really get a lot of playing time when they played in the tournament, so just all the extra stuff is kind of the main thing that they've been able to be in our ear about.
The men's game is in Oklahoma City and broadcast on cable network True TV. Tomorrow, the 13th-seeded Vandal women ride a school-record 18-game winning streak into Norman, Oklahoma, taking on the 4th-seeded Oklahoma Sooners. It's the 4th time since 2013 the Idaho women have made the NCAA tournament, and the highest they've been seeded in that time. Tip-off Friday at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. That broadcast is on ESPN. Troy Oppie, Boise State Public Radio News.
Something to consider during your morning commute, and you're eyeballing that sign telling you what the speed limit is. And one lawmaker says way too many people are speeding. They're getting a speeding ticket, but then ignoring it.
We have lots of drivers across the state that have had traffic infractions and that they've not paid them. The issue for law enforcement was we're not having the consequences for reining in some bad drivers. And
This is GOP Representative Mark Sauter from Sandpoint.
when I started doing some research on this, we have about 125,000 drivers across the state that have unpaid infractions. And how do we get to here? In 2018, the legislature decided to stop suspending driver's licenses for unpaid traffic fines. Back at that point, we had about $1 million in unpaid traffic fines, and now we're over $23 million in unpaid traffic fines.
Sauter's bill would reinstate the penalty, the suspension of a driver's license for an unpaid traffic ticket. It would go into effect next January 1st. Drivers would then have about 60 days to pay their outstanding fines.
The court actually offers a system of payments that all drivers are offered. There's even a section of code where the court can say that this driver cannot pay, and they recognize the inability to pay of the driver.
So yesterday, the House Ways and Means Committee agreed that the bill should get a full public hearing. On Wednesday, we heard of a new measure regarding slow traffic, but it is slow for a very good reason. It concerns very big farm vehicles, combines in particular. But there is an issue.
Here's the problem we have. Typically, farm equipment doesn't travel over 25 miles an hour. This is the most dangerous time for equipment on the road when it doesn't have a car behind it. And the reason being is because people don't realize how slow they move.
This is GOP Senator Van Burtenshaw of Jefferson County telling lawmakers of how common this is, particularly this time of year when motorists are just beginning to see a lot more combines on the roads. But that scenario of cars coming up too fast on a combine is a deadly scenario.
We lost a good man that was crossing the bridge and was hit from behind, and it pushed the combine over the top of the railing and a couple hundred feet into the gully below. And of course, he didn't survive that. I've had a good friend that was hit in a tractor here a few years ago. He was killed. And I have a good friend who lost a son, 24 years old, that was hit from behind in the tractor.
The law as written currently allows law enforcement to ticket these combines. But they can't just pull over anywhere. Farmers say they're looking for a decent, wide shoulder to pull over, but sometimes they don't come up on one for miles.
Now, some tickets have been issued to some of the farmers in the Twin Falls area because they're slowing down traffic. But you're not going to be able to pull this into the local Maverick. It's just too big. And you can't pull it into somebody's driveway because the driveway's not big enough. Now, if you give these guys a ticket, police said you need to fight it out in court. That's their answer to it. It's really not the answer.
So Burtonshaw's bill wants to give the combine drivers a break without subjecting them to getting a traffic ticket. After all, he said, it's not as if nearly every valley of Idaho wasn't farmland first, Boise included.
The farms didn't grow up around the cities. The cities grew up around the farms. And anybody that's here in this valley understands what that means.
Burtenshaw says the farmers want to pull over more than anyone, but it has to be in a safe place. So yesterday, the House Transportation Committee agreed that the drivers of that large farm equipment should get a break from getting a traffic ticket. And that is today's episode of The Connector. I'm George Prentice. By the way, did you know that you could listen to The Connector on YouTube? Yep, you can find it there or here, just as long as you find us. That's it for a Thursday. I'll be back here tomorrow. I hope you will too. Thanks for listening.